Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you guys the Grinch book tag. So I wasn't planning on filming this video at all because I already had all my December videos planned out. But a couple of days ago I saw Peyton from Peyton Reads do this tag. I know she's not the original creator, so I will link both Peyton's video and the original creator's video down in the description below if you are curious. So this idea just sounded like a really fun time, so you guys are getting a bonus video this week, which is also really fun. So this tag is centering around books that made you mad for a specific reason. So I'm gonna go through all of the different prompts and give you guys my answers. I will also post all of the prompts for this tag in the description below as well. So without further ado, let's get mad about books. All right, the first question is, half of the lights on the Christmas tree are burnt out. Name a book slash series slash character that started out good but then went downhill. Okay, I literally just realized that I have two answers for this question, so I am gonna mention both of these series. The first one that definitely started out really good for me and then quickly went downhill was the original Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first series that is set in her Grishaverse. And I will say, going into this trilogy, I knew it wasn't gonna be great because a lot of people that I follow were talking about how this is very much a 2012 YA fantasy. It's definitely not the best fantasy series out there, so I did kind of check my expectations going into this. But this first book I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars, and then the second book, Siege and Storm, I gave like 3 or 3.5, and then Ruin and Rising, the final book, I gave 2 stars. So yeah, this series definitely went downhill for me. I remember that last book in particular, it was definitely a journey book, and the journey was very boring for me. So most of the time reading that book, I had to like force myself to pick it up. But I will say I liked the way that the series overall ended, but yeah, as much as I enjoyed this first book, the other 2 books, not so much. And then I did want to talk about another series that I feel like definitely went downhill, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carey. So this first book, I probably gave 3.5 stars. I did overall enjoy it. And then Hunting Prince Dracula, which is the second book, I gave like 4.5 stars. I almost gave it 5 stars. I thought that was a phenomenal installment. And then the third book, Escaping from Houdini, happened, and I ended up giving that 3 stars. That might even be a little bit generous of a rating if I'm being honest. The plot and the writing could have been better, and then there were just all these stupid things happening with Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell's romance that I just thought was absolute bullshit. Audrey Rose was being like borderline cruel to Thomas. There was almost cheating kind of going on, and it was just yikes. And then Capturing the Devil, which was the final book, I will say that one was slightly better than Escaping from Houdini, but not by all that much. And the only reason why I enjoyed that one as much as I did was because it focused a lot on the romance between Audrey Rose and Thomas. So yes, as much as I enjoyed the first 2 books, the last 2 books not so much. Next up we have Annoying Great Aunt Sally Who Will Not Leave You Alone. Name a book that you didn't enjoy but everyone else seems to love so it never goes away. I had a couple of ideas for how I was going to answer this question, but I decided to go with Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, another Leigh Bardugo book. I actually don't have a copy of this anymore because I gave it away to one of my subscribers, but this one I got about like 65 pages into, and I was just so confused and bored that I had to put it down. And so many people love this book so much that it's really disappointing because I wanted to love it as well. I always want to be on the bandwagons for these different books that are so popular. And unfortunately, this book just did not work for me, which is just weird because there are some Leigh Bardugo books that I have loved in the past. All right, next up we have Your Pets Keep Knocking Over the Christmas Decorations. Name a character that kept messing things up for everyone else and you can't pick a villain. This one was pretty easy for me because this character just annoys the shit out of me, and that is Lila Bard. Is that her last name? Yes, Lila Bard from the Shades of Magic trilogy by V. Schwab. So she is pretty much the other main character other than Kel, and she is Kel's love interest, and like, oh my god, she was so annoying because she was just so stubborn and reckless to the point of stupidity. I don't know, and I feel like she kept doing things that made life so much harder for Kel in general, and she was just not likable in my opinion. I wanted to like her. I wanted to like all of the characters in this series. In fact, I wanted to love this series in general, and I did like this first book, but the other two books not so much. But yes, Lila's character annoyed me a lot, and I just wish that she would have been smarter and just not as stupid and reckless as she was in this series. Number 4 is you hear your parents putting out the presents and learn that Santa isn't real. Name a book that you were spoiled for. Oh my god, to this day, I am still so mad at myself about this one. So this is a book that I spoiled for myself. This is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This is the bind up of 5 novellas that are prequels to the Throne of Glass series, which is one of my favorite fantasy series ever. So I have since learned from my mistake, but when I was first getting into this series and a lot of other like different YA fantasy series in general, I liked to be able to fully visualize the characters that I was reading about, and so I would look up these characters on like the wiki pages for these different series. So for instance, in The Assassin's Blade, I was looking up characters on the Throne of Glass wiki page, and something that I didn't know beforehand was that on these wiki pages, they'll have a picture of like the fan art of the character, which is what I wanted to see, and then literally right below that, they'll have status, and it'll tell you if someone is still living or if someone is deceased by the end of the series. So all that to say is that there is a character in this book that dies by the end. And I looked up this character on the wiki page and it said status deceased. And I was so mad at myself that I did that. I have since learned from that mistake. I don't look up character descriptions on those wiki pages anymore because now I know that I will get spoiled. So instead I'll just like go on Google Images and type in the character's name. But yes, to this day, I am still so mad that I spoiled myself for this character death. All right, next up, it's freezing outside. Name a main character you just couldn't connect with. And guys, I'm kind of sad about this one, if I'm being honest, because anytime that I read any book, I always want to connect with the main characters, and for this character in this series in particular, it just didn't happen. So that is going to be Laya in An Ember in the Ashes series by Saba Tahir. If you guys have been following me for a while, you might know that this series overall just doesn't do it for me. I'd probably give it like a 3.5 stars in general, and I'm actually not planning on reading the 4th and final book because I was overall just underwhelmed by the 3rd book in the series. But Laya as the main character, in my opinion, she doesn't really have all that much of a personality other than the fact that she's just so desperately trying to rescue her brother from prison. Like, that is her story arc in this entire series, pretty much. And then there's also this weird kind of forced romance with her and Elias. I think it's forced. I just didn't see the chemistry between these two characters, and yeah, because of all of that, I just couldn't fully emotionally connect to Laya. It is really unfortunate because I went into the series hoping and thinking that I was going to love it and the characters as much as everybody else seems to, so yeah, it happens sometimes. 6th prompt is Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You is giving you anti-romantic feelings. Name a couple you couldn't stand. There aren't necessarily any characters that I'm angry about the fact that they're together. I mean, I could mention Lila and Kel from Shades of Magic, but I already talked about that earlier in this video. So the only couple that really came to mind was Ron and Hermione from the Harry Potter series, because I have always felt that that was a forced pairing, and I will die on that hill that I just don't see those two characters together. Honestly, Hermione's too good for Ron. Sorry, like, I like Ron, but like, Hermione is like top tier, you know? Then the next prompt is that scratchy homemade wool sweater you got for Christmas years ago but won't get rid of. Show some books that have been sitting on your shelves for a while and you aren't motivated to read, but you don't have the heart to get rid of. So I just decided to pick like a random 3 books off my shelves, but to be honest, most of the books that I own, I am very excited about reading. So the first one is The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torr. So this is a romantic suspense series. I think it's a trilogy. Yes, because I own all 3 books on my bookshelf. So this one centers around this main character, Deanna, who is a cam girl. I'm actually going to read a little bit of the synopsis for you. It says, Deanna Madden, aka Jessica Riley, hasn't touched another person in 3 years. She hasn't stepped outside her apartment. She makes money from performing to webcams on a sex site. She's doing all right, the dollars are piling up in the bank, and she hasn't killed anyone for years. But when Deanna sees on the news that a little girl called Annie has gone missing, the story rattles her carefully ordered world. It's uncomfortably similar to the dark fantasy of one of her most disturbing online clients. She's convinced he's responsible for the girl's abduction, but no one will listen to her. So that's definitely a really intriguing plot and synopsis, but at the same time, I've heard some kind of mixed things about it, especially as the series goes along. Like, I've heard that this first book is really good, the other 2 books not so much. So like, yes, I want to read it, but like, it's definitely not a priority, and it's just gonna sit on my shelves for a while. Then another book is Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. So this is the 3rd and final book in this like YA contemporary companion series. I have read both Anna and the French Kiss and Lola and the Boy Next Door. Both of those books are just fine. Anna and the French Kiss is kind of yikes because there's like definitely emotional cheating going on in that book. And then Lola and the Boy Next Door, I think there was also emotional cheating going on. And like, part of me just kind of wants to give this book away or sell it. But part of me also wants to finish out the trilogy. So like, will I read it? Yes, probably, but not anytime soon. And then the final book that I have in this little stack by me is Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. There's no real reason why I'm not attracted to reading this book, because I have read one of Brandy Colbert's books before. It was The Voting Booth. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. So like, I have a feeling I'm gonna enjoy this one too, but like, maybe it's because I don't love the cover, because like, I'm not a fan of like the font and the design, and maybe that's why I'm not like all that attracted to reading this book. I know it's about these main characters, Suzette and Lionel, and their step siblings. Lionel has bipolar disorder, and Suzette has come home to Los Angeles from her boarding school in New England. So I mean, I've heard that this is really good, but it's just not a priority for me to read it, and at the same time, I know that I don't want to get rid of it. All right, 8. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Name a character death you are still mad about. Warn people for spoilers, of course, and you can also use TV or movie deaths. And there is one death in particular that I do want to bring up, and that is from House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. So if you have not read this book yet and you don't want to be spoiled for the death that I'm going to bring up, I will put a timestamp here of where you can go to skip over this prompt. Okay, now that everybody is gone who has not read this book, Lahaba. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about her? Like, to this day, I'm still upset about it, mainly because this is only the first book in the series, and I'm going to want to see her character in future books, and I know she's not going to be in the books because she's dead. And for those of you guys that like need a reminder, Lahaba is the fire sprite that was working at the gallery with Bryce, and oh my god, she was so freaking adorable and hilarious in this book. Like, she watches soap operas all the time, and she's oddly like very horny, especially towards Hunt. Like, she has a huge crush on him, and like, oh my god, like, she added so much comic relief to this book. And I understand why Sarah J. Maas killed her off, and I do think that her death really meant something. It's not like she died in vain by any means. I just loved her character so much, and she needs to be protected at all costs, and yeah, I'm just endlessly devastated about her death. Number 9 says, the malls are overly crowded with holiday shoppers. Name a series that has too many books in it or went on for too long. This might be a little controversial of me to say, but if I'm being honest, the Shadowhunter Chronicles as a whole by Cassandra Clare, I feel like it's starting to go on for too long. Like, yes, I'm really enjoying the current series that she's releasing, which is The Last Hours, because that one has a historical setting. You know, it's based on the kids of the main characters of the Infernal Devices trilogy. So I am enjoying it, and I love those characters, but like, I don't know, man. There's like a couple more series that I think she's slated to release, and as much as I enjoyed those characters, I'm just not as excited about them as I was a couple of years ago. Like, back in 2018, I was like obsessed with this series, and I wanted Cassandra Clare to like keep writing them forever and ever and ever, but at this point, I'm just left feeling a little meh about it. We have the infernal devices, we have the mortal instruments, we have the dark artifices, the last hours, we have the spin-off, what is it, that series like the Lost Book of the White, that series that is centering around Magnus and Alec, which I love their characters, but I read that first book and I really felt meh about it, so I'm not continuing on with that spin-off. So yeah, overall, I just feel like it's time for Cassandra Clare to bring all of this to a close. And then last but not least, we have the Grinch. Name a main character you hate, but no villains again. This one was pretty easy for me. This is going to be Alice from Side Effects May Vary by Julie Murphy. So this is a YA contemporary that centers around Alice, who before the book starts, she was diagnosed with cancer. And so her first course of action, because she thinks she's going to die from cancer, is to exact revenge on her school bullies. So she pulls all of these kind of cruel pranks on these people, and then she finds out that she's actually in remission and she's not going to die, and so she has to deal with the consequences of her actions. And oh my goodness, she's one of the most unlikable characters ever. I think she's the most unlikable character that I have ever read about, especially a main character. I hate the way that she treats the love interest, I can't remember his name, the way she leads him on, I think is absolute bullshit. Towards the end of the book, he starts dating somebody else and she gets insanely jealous and sabotages that relationship, and it's just so awful. And I will say, like, towards the end, she finally started seeing some very real consequences for her actions, but I feel like it was like too little too late. And yeah, like, I was just so not here for her character. All right guys, that's going to be it for this Grinch book tag. I would love it if you would leave a comment below with the green heart emoji. I'll of course leave a little picture of that over here, and I would love it if you would leave your answers to these prompts if you want to, and I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you in advance if you do. And with that being said, I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all of that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!